In 2013, a 3-hour audio recording was leaked online. On it, a former poker world champion admits to stealing over $20 million from players on an online poker site.
I feel, and I did take this money, and I'm not trying to make it right yet, so we got to get that out of the way real quick, okay?
He says he has no intention of returning it, and the people around him, lawyers, executives, insiders, don't argue. They help him figure out how to hide it. The site was Ultimate Bet. For years, it was one of the biggest names in online poker. It was promoted by some of the most well-known players in the world, including Phil Hellmuth and Annie Duke. It had millions of users, sponsorships, televised events, and the trust of an entire community. But behind the scenes, the games were being manipulated. The software had been altered. And for more than 4 years, players were being quietly robbed without ever knowing it. This is the story of how it happened, how it stayed hidden, and how the truth finally came out. 5 years too late. Over the last few decades, we've seen what happens when systems built on trust are quietly exploited. It happened in online poker, and now it's happening with our personal data. Most of our information, phone numbers, emails, even financial records, is already floating around online. It's bought and sold by data brokers, and it doesn't take much for it to fall into the wrong hands. Just recently, a Harvard law lecturer released the email addresses of every employee at a crypto company and publicly encouraged people to have fun with them. This is why this video is sponsored by Aura. Aura monitors your personal information across the dark web, public records, and real-time credit activity. If anything shows up, whether it's your email, your social security number, or your login credentials, you'll get an instant alert. They also include up to $5 million in identity theft insurance, 24/7 fraud support, and one simple dashboard where you can manage it all. You can try Aura free for 14 days at aura.com/overnightmillionaire. That's enough time to find out if any of your data is already exposed, and what you can do to lock it down before someone else uses it. Now let's get back to our story. Ultimate Bet launched in 2001. It was developed by a company called IE Logic, which later rebranded to Excapsa. The site offered real money poker games and targeted casual players during the early stages of the online poker boom. To gain credibility, the company signed 2 high-profile poker players as ambassadors: Phil Hellmuth, a former world champion, and Annie Duke, a popular tournament pro. Their involvement helped the site grow quickly. By 2003, Ultimate Bet was one of the most recognizable names in online poker. It hosted daily tournaments, attracted high-stakes players, and processed millions of dollars in deposits and withdrawals. Around this time, Russ Hamilton joined the company as a consultant. He had won the World Series of Poker main event in 1994 and was considered a respected figure in the industry. He was given internal access to help the company improve operations. From the outside, Ultimate Bet appeared legitimate. The software worked, the games ran smoothly, and player traffic continued to rise. Most users trusted the platform. There were no obvious signs of problems, but by 2003, the cheating had started. At some point that year, a hidden figure was added to the Ultimate Bet software. It allowed someone with internal access to view the whole cards of every player at a table. The feature wasn't visible to users. It didn't require permission from the server. Once activated, it gave complete information in real time. The tool was originally developed for internal auditing. In theory, it was supposed to help staff investigate complaints or detect bots, but it was never disabled during live games, and it was never monitored. Russ Hamilton had access to it. Since he was working with the company as a consultant, he had a direct relationship with the software team. Using this tool, he created multiple fake player accounts and used them to enter high-stakes games. None of the accounts were linked to his name. Over time, he began using them to play against regular players. During these games, he could see exactly what each opponent was holding. He knew when to call, when to fold, and when to raise. The players on the other side had no idea. He didn't make himself look suspicious. The accounts didn't win every hand. They didn't play perfectly. But over thousands of hands, the win rate became impossible to explain. Between 2003 and 2007, he used this method repeatedly. He moved the winnings between multiple accounts and cashed out through the site's regular withdrawal process. The amounts varied, but over time, the total exceeded $20 million. Ultimate Bet did not flag the activity. At the time, there were no internal systems to detect this kind of access. Staff assumed the accounts were just highly skilled players. No one investigated further. The fraud continued for over 4 years. Most of the money came from high-stakes games, where even good players lose regularly. That made it harder to detect. For years, there were no formal complaints, no suspicions, and no consequences. From the outside, everything looked normal. But inside the system, the largest known cheating operation in online poker history was already underway. In late 2007, a player on Absolute Poker lost a hand that didn't make sense. He requested a hand history. When it arrived, it included information that shouldn't have been there. Every player's hole cards. The file was leaked online, and just like that, the first superuser scandal in online poker was confirmed. At first, it looked like an isolated case, but Absolute Poker and Ultimate Bet were linked. They shared infrastructure, ownership, and staff. So, players began to look closer. And just like that, in 2008, attention turned to a screen name on Ultimate Bet, Neo. It had appeared in high-stakes games throughout 2006 and 2007. The account didn't trash opponents or showboat. It didn't even win every hand. But over time, the profit numbers didn't add up. Some players said it was just variance. Others disagreed. On poker forums, people started collecting hand histories. One player folded kings pre-flop. Another called down with nothing and won. After weeks of analysis, a pattern emerged. Neo was only making the right decisions, and only when the outcome couldn't be guessed. It wasn't playing well. It was playing with information no one else had. The data was posted online. Graphs, breakdowns, win rates, all public. The conclusions weren't vague. Whoever was behind Neo was cheating, and they had been for years. Ultimate Bet responded with silence, then denial. They told players nothing was wrong, but the forum threads kept growing. More hands were posted. More accounts were linked. Neo wasn't alone. Eventually, in May 2008, Ultimate Bet released a statement. They admitted that cheating had taken place. According to them, it happened between March 2006 and December 2007, and it was carried out by people connected to the previous owners. No names were given, no numbers, no details. But by that point, players had already done most of the work. The site hadn't uncovered the truth. The users had, and they weren't finished. After admitting that cheating had taken place, Ultimate Bet said they were conducting an internal investigation. They claimed the issue was limited, the people responsible were gone, and all affected players would be refunded. But their explanation didn't match the data. Players had already uncovered hands going back further than the company admitted. They had also identified more accounts than the site acknowledged. Over the next few months, Ultimate Bet revised its timeline multiple times. Each update conflicted with previous statements. Meanwhile, players continued linking suspicious usernames, analyzing patterns, and publicly challenging the official narrative. In September 2008, a third party stepped in. The Kanawake Gaming Commission, which licensed Ultimate Bet, released its own report. For the first time, a name was attached to the scandal: Russ Hamilton. According to the investigation, Hamilton used 23 accounts to exploit a software tool that allowed him to view opponents' hole cards. The total amount stolen was over $22 million. Most of it came from high-stakes cash games. The report confirmed that the cheating had been happening since at least 2003. No other individuals were named. No legal action was taken. The company was fined, and players were promised full refunds. Ultimate Bet, remained online. And so, by the end of the year, public interest had faded. The forums moved on to other topics. Some players returned to the site, others didn't. The scandal had been exposed, the refunds were processed, and the story was over. Or at least, it looked that way. In May 2013, 5 years after the investigation had ended, a 3-hour audio file recording was leaked online. It hadn't been leaked by a journalist or regulator. It came from someone who had been there. Travis McCarr had worked closely with Russ Hamilton. During the early days of the investigation, he was present at internal meetings, handled files, and had access to company records. One of those meetings had been recorded, and for years, McCarr kept a copy. When he finally released the recording, it revealed a side of the story that Ultimate Bet had never acknowledged. The meeting took place in 2008, shortly after the cheating was made public. Russ Hamilton is on the recording, along with his legal team, including Ultimate Bet's former lawyer, Daniel Friedberg, and others connected to the site's management. The discussion is not about whether the cheating happened. It's about what to do now that people knew. Hamilton admits to stealing the money. He doesn't downplay it. He doesn't express regret. At one point, he says, quote, "I did take this money, and I'm not trying to make it right." The others in the room don't push back. Instead, they start going through names. Which players are asking questions? Which ones could be silenced? And which ones are likely to go to the media? The strategy they land on is selective. Refund the loudest victims, delay the rest, keep the total amount hidden, and avoid giving regulators anything that could be used as evidence. One part of the recording stands out. Hamilton mentions Phil Hellmuth by name. According to him, the plan from the beginning was to keep Hellmuth in the dark. He says they didn't want Hellmuth to know about the cheating, not because he was involved, but because his name was still valuable to the company. If he believed the company was clean, he would keep defending it. And that's exactly what happened. Daniel Friedberg, Ultimate Bet's legal advisor, is also heard on the recording. He gives input on how to reduce liability, what language to avoid, and how to make the refunds look complete without disclosing everything. By the end of the meeting, there is no discussion about justice. There is no plan to pay back the full amount. The conversation is focused entirely on minimizing damage to themselves. When the tapes were leaked, the reaction online was immediate. The audio confirmed what players had suspected for years, that the cheating wasn't just about what happened during the games. It was also about how the company chose to respond. But even with this new evidence, no legal action followed. Russ Hamilton remained silent. Friedberg disappeared from the poker world, and most of the people named in the tapes were never held accountable. For players, it was a final confirmation, not just of the fraud, but of the cover-up. Phil Hellmuth was the most recognizable face associated with Ultimate Bet. He had been with the site since its early days, promoting it at live events, wearing the logo at televised tournaments, and appearing in its advertising campaigns. He wasn't part of the company's operations, but he was its most visible representative. When the cheating was exposed in 2008, Hellmuth didn't walk away. He released a statement saying he was deeply upset, but added that he believed the new management was committed to doing the right thing. According to him, leaving the site too early might hurt the chances of players getting refunded. So he stayed. That decision drew criticism. Some players believed he was protecting the brand instead of the victims. Others defended him, pointing out that he wasn't named in the investigation and that he had no technical role at the company. For the next 2 years, Hellmuth continued to represent Ultimate Bet while the company issued refunds and handled fallout. In 2010, he officially cut ties with the site. By then, the story had mostly faded from public view. But when the tapes were released in 2013, his name came up again. In the recording, Russ Hamilton says that the plan was to keep Hellmuth uninformed. He says explicitly that they didn't want him to know what was really going on, because if he believed the company was clean, he would continue to defend it. And that's what happened. Hellmuth had defended the site in good faith, while others inside the company were actively hiding information from him. After the audio was leaked, Hellmuth released a new statement. He said he had been lied to, that he had never known the full story, that the tapes confirmed what he had suspected but couldn't prove. He said, quote, "I've never been more wrong about anything in my life." His reputation took a hit, not because he had cheated, but because he had been the public face of a company that did. For years, his credibility had been used to shield something he didn't understand what was happening. He wasn't part of the fraud. He wasn't part of the cover-up. But his name was there the entire time. Even after the tapes were leaked, there was no new investigation. No arrests were made. No charges were filed. Russ Hamilton never spoke publicly. He was never prosecuted, and he never returned the money. Daniel Friedberg, who was heard on the tapes advising how to manage the fallout, left the poker industry. Years later, he would resurface as a legal advisor at FTX. Greg Pearson, who founded the company behind Ultimate Bet, wasn't named in the final regulatory report. He later launched a fraud prevention business. Ultimate Bet shut down in 2011 after the U.S. Department of Justice cracked down on offshore poker sites. The remaining player balances were never fully paid. For many in the poker world, the scandal changed how they viewed online games. It exposed how little oversight there was and how easily software could be abused, and how long it could go unnoticed. Players had uncovered the truth, but those responsible walked away. Today, most players don't talk about Ultimate Bet. The site is gone. The game has moved on. But the story hasn't been forgotten, because it raises questions that still don't have a clear answer. If players hadn't exposed the truth themselves, would anyone else have bothered? Was this just one person abusing a tool, or was it something deeper? Let me know what you think in the comments, and if you found the story interesting, make sure to like and subscribe for more. Thanks for watching.